Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sideline Shenanigans podcast. Today with Jacob Maggerdan.
Dalton Phillips.
And welcome back to the show. We've taken a little week break here. As you know, we're both in college, wrapping up finals week, had a lot of work to do, a lot of things to go through. Plus, we didn't have a ton of excitement, past the conference championship games. Would like to mention Army Navy and talk about that game real quick. That Navy team looked like the kind of team that they did early in the season. They dominated that game. And truthfully, it looked like the Navy team that people were like, oh, this is a top, 25 team. This is a team that can push for a playoff spot. I think they just hit a rough patch. That Notre Dame game did not help. Of course, they got blown out in that one, so that really hurt them. And then you just saw Army come off that big time win in their conference. You thought this team is really good, and Navy handles business. It'll be fun to see that come back next year because what do those two teams look like? Can they be as good again without their star players? And can they find other guys to produce? It was just a cool season for those two teams. Don, if you have anything you want to add.
Yeah, I was tuning into that game, and I was very surprised how they contained Bryson Daly. That guy is a stud, maybe one of the best players in college football.
Yeah.
I could see him going to play in the NFL, which is hard to see out of a guy that's on like Army or any of those teams because they just most of the time they're role players. They can't really like fit in the NFL scheme. But he just an athlete that I feel like he could, and they contained him very well. And Navy surprised me a lot in that game.
Yeah, I mean, Daly, that you talk about and mention him, was a top 10 Heisman candidate. Honestly, you looked at the season he had and you saw he had the passing ability that he had, and you do think a team will probably reach out and offer him. I mean, it's talk about the rushing ability that he has, but also
Mhm.
he has the commitment to the Army, so it's going to be kind of a weird situation there too because I think he has to be drafted to avoid that. So it'd be interesting to see if a team says we do want him, but we don't want to draft him. What will happen there? I could see him going to the seventh round, sixth round. Somebody will take a shot on him if they want him, knowing his parameters that he has to meet if he doesn't get drafted. So yeah, that'll be an interesting situation there. And cycling right off that into what will be the drink section of the week. Dalton, if we can go ahead and start us with what you got over there, pal.
Yeah, I got me some blue Gatorade here. I'm trying to go away from the pop a little bit. Finals week was killing me a little bit, so I drank a lot of pop during that finals week trying to stay up. So we're gonna try to wean off of it a little bit.
We'll take a week off.
Yeah,
Well, I haven't been doing too much of the pop drinking. We didn't have any voltages. Obviously, would like to have had that, but we got a Code Red today. A Code Red, very good Mountain Dew, solid option, one of the better ones. It always hits right. Mountain Dew sponsor us. Gatorade sponsor us. And past that point, we didn't do a recap video for the conference championships. Obviously, a lot of big time things happened. Georgia winning, taking down Texas, getting the two seed, getting the bye. Texas now has to play in this first round, which we're going to be speaking about today, and change the dynamics of the playoffs in general. We saw SMU Clemson was a really, really great game. Clemson gets in the playoffs. We'll also be talking about them today, and that SMU team still making the playoffs like they should have. I'm glad that the committee did the right thing and picked the right 12 teams to be in the playoff this year. And then, basically stemming off of that, we'll lead ourselves right into this first game. An in-state rivalry that has not happened in 25 plus years. A game that when it was played, it was big time. These two teams don't like each other, and Notre Dame is really trying to, get that off their back that they can't win the championship. They can't get in this thing and get it done. This team is really good. I think this is one of the better defenses in the country. And on the other side for Indiana, of course, you've got a new up and coming system with Curt Cignetti, and of course, led by a leading quarterback here, Curtis Rourke, a guy that he was at a small school for 4 years. He comes here, he performs, he looks really good. Was in Heisman contention for a while till he faced those injuries. 2,800 yards, 27 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. Very, very good quarterback play from him. And then, of course, you look at the Notre Dame quarterback. We're talking about one of the best rushers in the country, one of the more dynamic guys in Riley Leonard, a 2,000-yard passer, 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, but a lot of what he does is on the ground. And Dalton, if you want to talk about the ground game for these two teams.
very important here in this game. I know Indiana likes to pass the ball a lot, but they have two great running backs, Justice Ellison and Tyson Lawton. Both split backfield here pretty much. Justice Ellison takes a little bit more of the carries, but both backs are great. And on the other side of the ball, talking about great running backs, you got Jeremiah Love. This guy's a stud. The best athlete on the field when you're watching. This guy makes plays everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, they were speaking about it when they, last played, and he literally has like high jump ability where this dude could end up in an Olympics jumping
Yep.
the way he jumped over some guy. And it's just, yeah, you speak about the freakish athleticism. This is the best athlete on the field. I'm glad you mentioned that. And then you look at those stats for him. I mean, it's only 134 carries, man, and he's almost got 1,000 yards and 15 touchdowns on the season. You just can kind of see how important he will be in this game. You look at the receiving core. Indiana, they rely on Elijah Surratt. The guy's a monster. 49 catches, 890 yards, 8 touchdowns. That's Rourke's target. He will use his running backs in the game a little bit, but it's just mainly going to be Surratt when we're looking on the outside for big matchups. And then for Notre Dame, Bo Collins has been good this year, but the biggest reception threat, honestly, is Love. When he gets out of the backfield, he makes plays. They're going to get him the ball a ton in this game. It is going to be one of those things where on the national scene, you will see how good is Jeremiah Love. I could see somewhere over 200 scrimmage yards in this game if they really use him right. And then you speak about the defenses for these two teams. Kind of a quick segment here. Indiana does not have the defense Notre Dame has. It's really not that close. Indiana does not have a horrible defense, but they just haven't really stopped a ton of teams this year. Notre Dame is disgusting. They're nasty. They've stopped both service academies and they manhandled them, knowing that that's one of the best things in the country. Those two teams don't get stopped by people. They were able to do it twice. On top of that, they've played, A&M, shut them down, and they've done it all year with their defensive ability. Probably the thing that if they win a championship, it will be because of that defense being one of the best in the country. Diving in to make a pick here. This is a game where I have a team I want to pull for, but it's just a team I don't think can get it done. I think Notre Dame will get this done at home. I think that home field advantage is very important for them. They're going to have a rocking crowd, and it will be fun to see this, big time rivalry come back. And man, I'd love to see Kurt Signetti get it done. I'm just going to go with the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, I'm going to second you here. I love Indiana. I love what they do, what they're doing there. But I just don't think that. I think that Notre Dame defense is going to be able to shut them down a little bit. And I'm going to go the Fighting Irish here.
Next game here, SMU versus Penn State. This SMU team, there was a lot of conversation about would they make the playoff or not after they lost that conference championship game. I think the thing that got them in this playoff was they come back in that game and they made it as close as it could be after it looked like bad. I mean, it looked rough. This team was really struggling. And that same momentum that they carried into the end of that football game, can they bring it in here to Penn State? One of the toughest places to play in the country. This crowd will be rocking, but James Franklin does have that issue of he just can't win the big ones. So we'll see what happens in this game. You look at the stats here. Kevin Jennings, he's a 3,000-yard passer and a phenomenal rusher. 22 touchdowns, 8 interceptions through the air. The guy's been really, really great. A guy that we didn't even know was going to be their starter because they had another guy on the roster that was really good before that. Just really awesome performance from Jennings. Sets them up for years to come because he's only a sophomore. Then you look at Penn State. Drew Aller has announced he's coming back next year to play some more college football. That is a big, big swing in momentum for them. This guy was expected for sure to go to the draft, a guy that's boosted his stock a ton. They probably did some big NIL work to keep this guy around. A 2,800-yard passer, almost 2,900, 21 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He's the key to this game, in my opinion, because they're going to get the run game going. They always do. It will be, how does Drew Aller play? Does he play like the guy we've seen him play a couple times this year? Or does he play more like that guy that played against Ohio State that just couldn't make big-time plays and couldn't get it done? It's going to be interesting to see. Dalton, the run game for these teams is really strong if you want to talk about that.
Very important here again. Penn State, they have two insanely good running backs, Keytron Allen and Nick Singleton. Nick Singleton, they're both probably NFL caliber running backs. Nick Singleton will be in the NFL next year. That's pretty much a given. And SMU, we have Brashard Smith, excellent running back, 1,200 yards on the year. You can't ask for anything more, especially when you're passing the ball a lot like they are. They rely on him heavy still. And I believe that's where the game is being told at, is the run game.
Yeah, and another point you mentioned there with Brashard Smith, that Kevin Jennings, Brashard Smith backfield and the ability for both of them to take off and run is very dynamic. It won't be easy to stop. And then you look at the receiving for these two teams. Roger Daniels has been the guy for SMU since the injury to R.J. Maryland. Once he went down, Jennings had to find a different target. He had to find a different guy. And Daniels has been the guy that steps up for him. 38 catches, 599 yards, 3 touchdowns. That doesn't compare to the guy on the other side of the ball. Tyler Warren, 7th in Heisman odds. That's a tight end. When's that happened? I don't know. He's a freak. He will line up in the backfield. He'll take snaps as a quarterback. He'll run the ball. Again, we've mentioned it how many times. This dude can line up anywhere and make plays. 88 catches, 1,062 yards, 6 touchdowns. To me, that's the difference maker. I think you look at a guy like Tyler Warren and you say, can SMU stop him? Because if they can, this is a very beatable team. You lock in on him. You let him run a little bit because that's what they're going to do. but you figure out how to stop Tyler Warren. This is a winnable game. You look at the defense for these two teams. This is one of the best rushing defenses in the entire country for SMU. They are one of the best. That is the thing that will help them in this game. They can shut down the run. Penn State wants to run the ball. That has been their theme forever, since James Franklin's been there. And then on the other side, Penn State, they always have good defenses. It's kind of the thing the Big Ten does, play really good defensive football. I would expect that Penn State will come out and be really good defensively. This is going to be a very low-scoring, close football game, in my opinion. And maybe we see the doors open up and both teams score a lot, but I expect defense to be the key here. Going to make a pick. This is not an easy one. In Happy Valley, one of the toughest places to play in college football. Dalton, I'll let you lead us here.
I'm questioning this one here. I've been debating this. This is probably the most debated game for me all week. I'm gonna go with the Mustangs here. I think they pull through. Penn State's gonna be a rock and a wideout. It's gonna be a tough atmosphere, but I think Drew Allar's just gonna struggle in this game and not get it rolling. And I think that the SMU Stangs are gonna run right through them.
Yes, and that's what I want to say too. That's who I want to agree with. It's tough for me to do that. I just think that this SMU team, they faced a lot of adversity this year. I mean, there was a point in time where they lost to BYU. People said, well, they can't go win the conference. Then they go dominate the conference. But then they lost the game in the conference championship game. They've seen those moments slip away from them too many times this year. I don't think it does again. I think SMU gets it done. I think SMU goes on the road here. I think that they perform at the level that they need to perform. And again, I think this game is going to be so close. This is going to be a very, very close football game. Kevin Jennings, to me, is just a freak. He's the guy. I think he'll have some big, huge rushing touchdown or some big play where how did he get out of that? That's who I'm looking at. I'm picking the Mustangs as well. Go SMU. Next game here, Clemson versus Texas. Two teams that just had really important games. One of them losing, one of them winning to get into the playoffs. We'll see which one carries some momentum in. You would assume that this Clemson team, they're going to be red hot. Texas, will they mull on that loss they just had, or will they be ready to play in a big time football game against a team that's been here and done that in the college football playoffs? You look at the passing stats for these two teams. Some would argue that Cade Klubnik is one of the best quarterbacks in this playoff. Probably a top three guy. Has looked very dominant this year. 3,300 yards through the air, 33 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. If you get that version of Cade Klubnik in this football game, they are very hard to beat. But he has played different ways throughout the year. We've had some games where he just didn't play well. Georgia was one of those. He did not play great against South Carolina. It'll be interesting to see what he does in this one. And then for Texas, Quinn Ewers, 2,600-yard passer, 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That's been his issue. Turned the ball over a little bit too much. It'll be interesting to see his health in this game. We're not 100% sure if he's going to be the full go guy or if they'll go to Arch Manning for some things. And I would assume Manning will be on the field a little bit for some specialty plays where he runs it or even has the ability to, of course, launch a deep ball because Manning is an elite threat in that part of his game. And Dalton, if you want to talk about the rushing for these two teams, it's obviously going to be important.
Clemson's got Phil Maffa. This guy's maybe one of the best running backs in this college football right now. And this guy is crazy. He'll run through you. He'll go run around you. He'll do everything there. He'll do anything with you once with the ball. Texas has got 2 running backs in Quintravion Wisner and Jadon Blue. Both excellent running backs. They're going to get what's done. And you also have Arch Manning, the guy that you were just talking about. He's going to come in there and special sets, and he's going to run the ball because you've seen he's one of the fastest quarterbacks in college football. Yeah. And it's like surprising. You just don't see it like as a Manning quarterback. You know, I'm a Tennessee guy. Yeah, exactly. Peyton Manning was not a dual threat quarterback. Now he did have some rushing touchdowns, but not nearly. Neither did Eli. No. Maybe Cooper was just that guy running the ball. They said he was the most athletic brother. Yeah. Maybe he made the most athletic Manning.
Yeah, and that's definitely what they've all said. They always talked about how he was going to be the best out of all of them. Yeah. And it will be interesting to see how they use him. Also, to mention, Quintravion Wisner, he's turned it up at the end of the season. A guy that was, splitting carries with Blue, and we really didn't have who's their stud. He's carried them a couple times here recently. He dropped 170 yards in the last game of the season. And then on top of that, he played well in the championship game, although it didn't matter. They got the loss. He's hot right now. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what happens there. Does he get it done for them in the playoffs? You look at the receiving game for these two teams. Obviously going to be very important. Both these teams have pretty good receivers. You look at Clemson. Antonio Williams is their guy. 71 catches, 838 yards, 10 touchdowns. Of course, they have Jake Brenningstool as well, the tight end, big-time threat. And they will use Phil Maffa in the screen game and some short passes because who wouldn't want to get that guy the ball in open field? On the other side for Texas, you look at Golden. He's been a guy this year that's been very dynamic. He can do a lot of things. He returned some kicks for him as well. 47 catches, 738 yards, 8 touchdowns. They also have Wingo out there. They have Isaiah Bond, who has not been that big of a deal this year. If he gets going at some point in this playoff, that's going to be scary for them, as well as a really good tight end in Gunnar Helm. Very interesting football team to watch. And again, I go back to the point that if Quinn Ewers is healthy, we don't know what could happen because he was slinging the rock earlier in the season, and he was slinging the rock last year. It'll be interesting to see what it goes down. Defensively, Clemson and Texas, both known for their defenses this year. Clemson not as good as Texas. I would say Texas is probably one of the best defenses in the entire country, and I think a lot of people would agree with that statement. It'll be interesting to see who can get what done on the side of the ball because you're looking at a healthier Clemson team probably, and then Texas. You mentioned, that the defense from Clemson is going to be a big deal. Texas may be without Kelvin Banks. If they don't have Kelvin Banks, Ewers is already injured. That's scary when your best offensive lineman goes down. He is down with an undisclosed injury currently. They're obviously optimistic that he will play in this game, but that will be something to watch. That could be a big deciding factor to see if that pass rush will really affect Ewers or Manning, whoever's back there in this game. Going to make a pick here. Texas obviously gets this game at home. That's a big deal. That's going to matter a lot. We'll see if Clemson fans travel to that stadium and pack it out. I'm going to go here and say that I think Texas gets it done. I think that they're just healthy enough. I think that Clemson kind of just skinned their way in here. They barely got in the playoff. Had to have some things happen. Give me the Longhorns.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you again. I think Texas is going to win. I just don't think Clemson is good enough football team to compete with this Texas Longhorn team. This Texas Longhorn team is maybe one of the most skilled teams in this playoffs. They just haven't shown it this year, which is the thing is maybe if they don't show up, maybe Clemson wins, but I'm still going to go Texas here.
Last game on the docket here. This is it. This is the one that Dalton obviously cares about the most. This is the game that probably a lot of people care about the most. That's why it's at the 8 o'clock spot on Saturday night. Ohio State gets the home game in the shoe. That's a big deal. This game was one of those where we talked about who would get this home game. It was going to be debatable to see if Ohio State dropped below Tennessee after that loss to Michigan. They do not. They get the home game. You look at the stats here, of course, Nico Iamaleava this season, 2,500 yards, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He has picked it up down the stretch. Now, one of the critiques that he's had all year, and it's a reasonable critique, 12 of his touchdowns have come against those teams that, a lot of people look at the schedule and say they're not tough opponents. He picked it up down the stretch. He played really good against Vanderbilt. And that was a great game to play really good because he didn't have the health from his guys. So, you saw him be able to compete with guys that weren't those top-tier athletes. We'll see if he can continue that into this playoff. And then OSU. Will Howard is the opposite. He was bad in his last game. He was pretty horrible against Michigan. He threw 2 really bad interceptions, something we hadn't seen a lot out of him this year. Only thrown 6 coming into that game. Still a 2,800-yard passer, still has 27 touchdowns. If they get Will Howard, the veteran quarterback, the experienced quarterback, he is a little bit better than Nico at this point in his career, only because of playing time, because he's been here, done that. But Nico, if he's hot, is obviously one of the best talents in the country when it comes to what they expect him to be when he gets to that final year of his career here. And Dalton, of course, if you want to talk about the rushing game, these two teams will rely on it a lot.
Tennessee, I've got my guy, Dylan Sampson. This guy's been doing it for us the entire year. He's been backpacking us, honestly. He scores the touchdowns for us. He does pretty much everything. And for Ohio State, we've got Quinshon Judkins and TreVeyon Henderson, 2 stud running backs, both NFL caliber running backs. Very important running game. Both running backs are excellent, and I'm actually going to be at this game, and I'm rooting against those guys. Obviously, I'm going to be in the shoe, and hopefully Dylan Sampson goes crazy.
And that is obviously the big talking point here. I will lead us into this receiving because that is the biggest thing. Thornton, McCoy, Squirrel White, all facing injuries coming into this game. We are not sure on the status of them. It's kind of been just a vague response of, they might be able to play. We're optimistic they're going to play, but we really don't know if they're going to play. I will say the Thornton injury looked a little bit worrying in that Vanderbilt game. He is the leading receiver on the year. He's the big-time playmaker. I mean, you look at the receptions, man. He only got 25, but he has 647 yards. So when he makes a play, it's a big-time play. And on the other side for OSU, this is the best receiving corps in the country. Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith, the good guys behind him like Tate. It's ridiculous. And they didn't use that against Michigan. Will Howard was not having a good game, and they really didn't get those guys going. If they don't get them going again, this is a very beatable team. Been proven that. But if they get those weapons going, man, they're scary. You look at the defenses for these two teams. Tennessee, one of the best defenses in the entire country. They could be without some of their interior depth at the defensive line. But I still see them being okay on that side of the ball because they're just elite at everywhere. They have a really good defense. Ohio State, obviously, the talent is there. One of the best recruiting teams in the country. They also have a talented defense, but I'd give the edge to Tennessee on that stage. The last thing I want to mention that's going to be important in this game is that Tennessee depth at receiver. If they are hurt, if they are without their three guys, they will be playing two freshmen that have a total of 8 catches. And then, of course, Chris Brazzell, one of the guys that they can rely on and has been good this year. That is a worrying thing. They need to have the health of the receiver position. If they don't, Nico's going to be stranded, man. He's going to be throwing to guys that just haven't played with him this year. That can be a very scary thing for this Tennessee team coming into this playoff game. Going to make a pick here. Obviously, I'll lead us. I'll let Dalton finish it off. I think Ohio State gets it done. I hate saying that for you. I really do. I'm sorry. I just think Ohio State, they have a little bit better team, especially with all those injuries, man. If Tennessee has all their guys, if everybody's playing, you could still make an argument that Ohio State's more talented. That's the issue. If they don't have those guys, they're in deep trouble. I just don't see it happening. I think Ohio State has that home field advantage, and I just think they barely get it done. And you know, I'm not picking off of who I like because I don't like Ohio State at all. I just think that they get it done in this one.
Yeah, you know where I'm going. I'm going with my Tennessee Volunteers. Going to be there. I think that Tennessee might have more fans there than Ohio State. That's what I've been seeing. I've been looking at all these like fan pages and stuff, and like all these Ohio State fans, they're all like, we're not going to the game because the Michigan lost.
Yeah.
They're like, get Day out of here. We don't like this guy.
You
And I'm
know,
like, if we have more fans, it might be a home field advantage for us. Like you never know, but it's not going to be because that's a good trip. It's a 5 hour trip for me. I'm still making it because
yeah.
they're in the playoffs. I'm going to go up there and watch them. So I'm just excited to watch the play. Hopefully we get a win here. Huge week.
Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. Of course, this is it. We've got to the point of the season where we're talking about things that we have not seen ever in college football. The first 12 team playoff, the first weekend of amazing college football playoff football. Really excited for that. A lot of great matchups. Everybody's going to be tuned into these things. And then on top of that, something else to talk about. We covered, a lot of what's happened in the past of the season. I talked about the recaps that what we've done all year. Something that we've talked about at points in the year was the Heisman. It's a moment that I think we both have to talk about a little bit here. Jeanty doesn't get it done. It's very upsetting for me. That was the guy I really wanted to win the award. I think Hunter's last game where he scored those 3 touchdowns and had that interception, it was kind of that lasting remark, that last push for the Heisman. They pretty much gave it to him after that game. I will say, Jeanty getting his team in the playoff and performing the way he did in his conference championship, I thought was going to give him a chance, and it definitely slimmed that margin back down because this was the closest Heisman race since '09. So, the voters also said, you know what, this is really close. I think these two guys both deserved it. I'm not mad that Hunter won because Hunter had an unbelievable season. He did something we literally never seen. And then on top of that, again, Jeanty, the guy I wanted to win it, unbelievable season too. He's looking to break Barry's record in the playoff. He only needs like 130 yards, and realistically, that's his season averages. So we might see arguably the greatest college football running back season ever. That could be something we see with our own eyes in a passing era. So it's not even a rush first era. It'd be really cool to see that. Don, if you have any remarks you want to make about the
Yeah,
Heisman.
I called that Travis Hunter thing at about halfway through. I was like, this guy's gonna some. I said that that Jeanty was gonna slow down. He didn't. That man just kept
He
running
didn't slow
through.
down.
He didn't slow down. It was just the fact of that Travis Hunter just did something that no one else had done. And I do agree. I think Jeanty, if you could give up 2 Heisman's ever, it would be
Yeah,
this year.
it'd been
It
this
would
year.
definitely because Jeanty is an athlete and a half. I mean, I would love to watch him perform in another season again. Hopefully, he does the same in the NFL. I'd
Yeah.
love to see another Derrick Henry like that in the
Yeah.
NFL.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if the Titans were just willing to go ahead and do that. Just replace, just go ahead and fill in. No, we have good backfield right now. Other points to talk about, of course. Tech will be playing in a bowl on January 3rd. They'll be playing against Minnesota. First time they've ever played against Minnesota, ever.
Minnesota.
First time ever playing against Minnesota. That's interesting. Two power schools not have met each other yet. And got some news about the quarterbacks. Of course, Drones and Pop Watson will be returning next year. So it'll be interesting to see those two guys get some playing time. The bowl game will be a big one. I think Pop will play it because of Drones' injury. It'll be interesting to see. Of course, Dalton, go ahead and talk about your Vols.
But this is by far my favorite of the week. I'm already like shaking, ready for the game. And I'm just gonna go tell you, Ohio State, be ready to look in the Ohio River for the goalpost. It'll be there Saturday night, about 12 o'clock.
Tennessee fans very good at tearing down the goalposts.
We've already got a map.
They've done it a couple times in their own stadium. So
I'm
don't be
trying not to
thinking
get pepper sprayed.
yeah, that you might get pepper sprayed. Be careful when you rush the field there. Other points, of course, college basketball season kicking up. We'll start leading more into that now. Of course, with the season here ending, we can get more time to just focus on that. But we still got a lot left.
Hey, them Volunteers are number one, though. I'm just saying.
They are. They're having a good year so far. One of the
Yep.
better defenses in the entire country when we
Yep.
talk about that. But again, thank you guys so much for joining us. I appreciate everybody. Like and subscribe. Leave in the comments how you'd like us to cover the season. Again, we've mentioned a couple times that we're going to do that. And again, I just appreciate you guys so much. Peace.
Peace.